I'm Lauren Horn, creator of This Is Not a Sketchbook and art educator for almost 10 years, and today we're going to be starting my micro portraits project. This is part of the micro portrait series. This is one of the first things listed on your reference photo checklist if you're following along with that in the classroom. The idea is that our reference photo is going to have really good lighting for drawing, meaning you see lots of value shapes, and I want you so zoomed in that there's nothing outside of the frame but your face, and you're only seeing maybe one or two features. Before we begin, I want to take a moment and find out if there's any good things going on in your life. This is how I start my class every single day. It doesn't matter if it's a big or a small thing, and you don't have to share today at all, but if you have something good going on, I'd love to celebrate you in the comments below. We're going to start our micro portraits right here, which might seem like we're jumping in the middle of a project, but that's because there's 3 videos that you need to watch before you get to this point. You need to watch my video on value, my video on reference photos, and my video on using a grid with a photo. So make sure you watch all 3 of those and then come back to this point and we'll get started. So now that we have our photograph gridded and our drawing paper gridded and made to the same size, we're ready to go. I'll be honest, I go back and forth on how I teach this, but mostly what I like is I would rather have students outline their value maps before the grid. For the sake of making sure that I was explaining a grid really clearly, I decided to go ahead and do the grid first. Just know that if you're doing this in your classroom, it might make more sense to map out their values first, then use a different colored pencil to do your grid on top before you think about transferring it. I'm going to go through now and I'm going to map out all my grids in a different colored pencil. If you have access to colored pencils, this is what I recommend as well. Do something different than the grid. If you're just working in a number 2, you're going to be okay too. You just might get a little bit confused at the lines later, so just make sure you're being extra diligent. I'm going to go ahead and map out my values in red. I've done this process before in the grid video, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. If you need a refresher, go back and watch that. Now that my values are mapped, I'm going to go ahead and start transferring them to my drawing paper. But before I do that, I wanted to address stuff like eyebrows and hairs and all of those little details. My best advice is to not get bogged down in that right now. You can use your value mapping to create a guide where those things are going to be later, but do not add those details like one fine little hair until the last step. And it's going to be really dramatic and fun when you do it. But if you labor over drawing every little hair right now, you're going to kind of go crazy. So just make sure you don't focus on that. I promise I'm going to come back around to it and we'll talk about it when we get to that point. Remember, as you draw, that you're just looking at your value map. Try not to draw the features themselves, or just don't even think about the features themselves. Don't think, okay, I'm drawing the eye. Just follow the red lines that you already made. You already put the work in to simplify your drawing into just value shapes, so don't make it harder by going backwards and start thinking about them as features. Part of drawing is to outsmart your own brain and to trick yourself into thinking you're seeing something much more simple than it is. You're breaking this down into smaller parts. That's it for this step. Make sure you go to part 2 for the next one.